Bienvenue, hello, and welcome. I have the video for this week, and this week we are going to Russia again. We have to do this occasionally. It is always a great fun to dip our toe into the Russians. But before we start, remember there is our shop where we have books and writing services, all sorts of things like that. And there is a Redbubble shop where we have pretty designs on all sorts of different things. So if you want to support us, that is a good way to support us. Also, like our videos, subscribe to our channel. That also helps to support us. Or share the videos with your friends. That also supports us. So there you go. Now you know how to support us if you like our videos. So our book for this week is possibly this one of the most famous Russian novels. Most people know of War and Peace by Tolstoy, and this week's book, which is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Watch me have great fun with the Russian names. So when you think of Russian literature, generally you think of either War and Peace or Crime and Punishment. We have already talked about War and Peace, so we are going to talk about Crime and Punishment. And fortunately, much thinner book. Also, I very much enjoy the writing of Dostoevsky, which I do not enjoy so much the writing of Tolstoy. You want to hear my thoughts on Tolstoy? Go watch our War and Peace video. So, Crime and Punishment. What is Crime and Punishment about? Well, I do not need to spoil the story for you in telling you that the story of Crime and Punishment is about a student. Well, he's no longer a student because he stopped going to the university. But the student Raskolnikov, who is 23 and has spent 30 days sitting in his miserable room, listening to his landlady complain about him not paying the rent, while he stoos and decides that he is a great person, a Napoleonic person, a Julius Caesar, and that for such great people, the mere mortals of mere mortals do not apply, and he is going to step out into his greatness by killing a moneylender, an old woman who pawns cheap things. He has decided that she is a parasite and that the world would be better without her, and that in order to facilitate his greatness and his progress in the world, he must prove himself not bound by the ordinary fickle little morals, and he will kill the moneylender and take her money and use it to do good. So he has decided this. This is not a spoiler. This happens right in the first parts of the book. So, I mean, even in the copies that I had, which I read this when I was at university. So, the first time when I did my undergraduate, I remember sitting on the train and reading this book, this particular copy. I've had this book for a very long time. But even in the index of characters, it is no great mystery that Raskolnikov kills the old moneylender, because it says Rodon Romanovich Raskolnikov, student and murderer. So we are very much, with this book, expected to know that Raskolnikov kills the old woman. And it is about why he killed the old woman. Well, I mean, in all honesty, Raskolnikov is kind of, if he were today, it would be, how you say, fedora wearing dude bro with podcast. We all know those people. He would be one of them. He would be one of those people. He is narcissistic, he is egomaniacal, he is, unfortunately for him, not actually sociopathic enough to get away with murder. Because that is a crime bit, the punishment bit. That is actually the bulk of the novel. The crime bit is the beginnings of the novel. The punishment, that is the bulk of the novel. That is what this is for. Now, this book is interesting in that it has, in recent years, garnered a certain reputation among people on the right of politics who have been reading it in a very particular way. I am not going to engage with that because I read this a long time ago, and I read this with a very particular, in a different way. I also have noticed that there are not very many women talking about this novel on the platform. So I think that is interesting, because I really like Dostoevsky as a writer, and I think that some of the discourse that has come up around Dostoevsky of late has put women off reading him, and I would say that is a great shame, because he is a great writer, and if you like Russian literature, he is certainly one to read. If you are not a Tolstoy, you're probably a Dostoevsky, sort of like Verdi and Wagner. You're going to be one camp or the other. I happen to be the Dostoevsky camp. So, Raskolnikov does kill the old moneylender. He robs her. He also kills her sister, who is entirely innocent. Now, one can wonder whether the bulk of the novel, the conflicts that he has, the internal conflicts that he has, is a result of him killing the sister? Or is it actually a result of the fact that he is not the superhuman creature that he thinks he is a mere mortal, and that putting an axe into anybody, no matter how much you think that they may deserve it, is an abhorrent act, and you are going to pay for that. Because Raskolnikov pretty much starts to pay for this immediately. He has rationalized this and rationalized this and rationalized this. Mais it turns out that it is not so easy to actually do as it is to think about doing. Interestingly, Dostoevsky novels, which is one of the things that you will find when you read these, if you have not read them before, the plot is sort of like 2/3. You really feel very unstable about where you are, who you are, what you're doing, who all these characters are, and then in the final third of Dostoevsky, then it all sort of shutters into place, and you get the narrative as such really kicks in. So it is a very interesting way to write. Quite interestingly, it is something that Patrick White, if you talk to Laura, learned from reading Russians, that Russians were better for writing Australians than English as a model of a novel. So if you are looking for a slightly odd, detour, bizarre in to read Patrick White Dostoevsky is an excellent thing because he was a significant influence, literary influence on Patrick White as he was conceiving the Australian novels. That is a little aside that I just put in for interest's sake. But what I love about this novel is I know there is a lot to talk about the philosophy, and you can talk about this. It is a very dense novel. You can talk about this in a great many ways. It is Dostoevsky had an interesting life. He was a radical in his youth and was actually arrested and put through a mock execution and then exiled to Siberia for 8 years. When he returned disavowing his radical youth and with a very profound attachment to Orthodox Christianity and the idea of structure and society rather than his useful, let's blow it all up type of mentality. And it is against this idea of the radicals and the disruptive quality of the radicals and the influence of the West onto Russia, and which he sees as a corruption after his return to Siberia, that is examined very much in Crime and Punishment. It is Raskolnikov has no peace while he is in this corrupted, hyper-individualistic state that leads him to commit the murder and then to, engage in this cat and mouse with what I think is the most interesting character, Porfiry Petrovich, the inspector, the policeman. It is, when you read it, you realize, when you get to the end, you realize that the whole thing is cat and mouse. If you have ever seen the pussycat, no matter how benign, with a mouse, they get the mouse, and the mouse thinks, oh, and then they let the mouse go. And the mouse goes, oh, and creeps forward, and then they jump, and they go, and they get the mouse, and then they let the mousey go, and the mousey goes away, and then they jump and over and over and over until eventually the mousey is like dead of broken bones and internal injury. And that is what Porfiry does to Raskolnikov. He a big pussycat, and he let him go, and he let him go, and then he pounce again, and then he let him go, and bounce again. And it is so fascinating, because by the end of the book you realize he killed him all the time. From the moment he first saw him, he knew you are the murderer, but because he is a lazy gendarme, he want a confession. I'm kidding. Kid. But he does want Raskolnikov to confess. He has a case. He knows the case. In fact, at the end, which is before Raskolnikov eventually confess, I don't think I am spoiling, 160-year-old book. I mean, if you do not know, I'm sorry, mais not sorry. Spoilers. You know how this works. It's old book. Anyway, he has another man, one of the decorators from the flat below, the moneylender, is supposedly confessed to this. Raskolnikov eventually does confess. So you can read this as the gendarme being lazy and merely, dumped, picked up a likely person and gone to give them conviction, or is he relying on Raskolnikov, some glimmer of morality within him that will torment him too much and force him to confess that an innocent man being convicted for his crime. So it is quite an interesting thing. I actually think that Porphyry is cunning enough to have put the innocent man in Raskolnikov's place, because he knows Raskolnikov is like so close to cracking. It's so close to cracking, and this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is so that is how I interpret that. You may interpret it differently. You may interpret it as like the gendarme. But I think because this book is worth reading. It is not about the cat and mouse game is the point of the book. I do not care about the philosophy. The philosophy is like, ugh. What I love is the psychology, and that is something that makes Dostoevsky truly unique in his time, is how deeply resonant psychologically his characters are. That is what makes the cat and mouse game so engaging. Is the psychology of it, the I got away. Oh no, the pussycat is back. Oh, I got away. And his wrestle internally with himself about, am I getting away, or is this weakness in wanting to confess, and oh, that is why you read this book. That is why you read this book. There are so many other characters. There is Svidrigailov, who was Raskolnikov's sister's employer, who has, it is pretty much categorically said, he has murdered his wife. There is Sonia, who is an 18-year-old girl. She is working, she is a sex worker, she is a prostitute who is keeping her drunkard father, her stepmother, and her stepmother's 3 children on her earnings. And she is deeply religious, and yet does not, unlike Raskolnikov, feel torn in the same way about the fact that her work, she is working and she is supporting them. She is the breadwinner of the house. She is the breadwinner, and because she is the breadwinner of the house, she actually has a certain level of status within that house. The adults, the parent and the stepmother, her father and her stepmother, do understand the sacrifice that she has made. She literally is at 15. She is goaded by her stepmother to go out and earn money, and so she does. And this, from that point, the stepmother becomes this great defender of her Basky, because her work as a sex worker puts her on the outside of society. Raskolnikov has very consciously chosen to be on the outside of society because this will make him a great man. Sonia is outside of society out of desperation, but she is not outcast from a family for this. She still has protection. She still has community within people who understand the great sacrifice that she has made. This is what Raskolnikov has not understood. He has not understood that it is sacrifice, not stepping outside the bounds through ego, that gains someone respect. I think this is also why it is so important for Porfiry to receive a confession from Raskolnikov, because, and this is sort of the point that Dostoevsky is making, is that one must accept the consequences of one's actions so that one can be reintegrated within the society. This is why it is important for the confession, because without the confession, Raskolnikov is never able to re-enter society. He will live in a constant state of guilt and turmoil and have absolutely no way to restitution from that. Whereas if he confesses and is punished, he is able to atone, and he is able to reintegrate. He is able to return to society, return to a concept of being a social being. Parce the individuals, this idea of the individuals that Dostoevsky sees as polluting Russian thought is untenable. That especially in a country like Russia, where the political system, the social system is not as well developed as in Europe at this time, it relies on mutual support and mutual succor, and it will entirely fall apart should people be this hyper individual. So it is a very fascinating book. There are so many ways that you can read this. There are so many other characters. There is his mother, his sister's fiance, who are all really important. Dostoevsky is very interested in the position of women, and the position of women is particularly bad in Tsarist Russia. The violence that they are forced to accept, the misogyny. This is a world where there are what are called, and I do not think they are in this book, they are definitely in others, the shriekers, who are women who have the social and the emotional pressure has crushed them down to such a degree that mentally they have snapped, and they literally are screaming hysteric. They are, that is why they are called shriekers. So you have this world where women are little better than cattle. Their value is in their marriageability, prospects, child rearing prospects, their ability to bring money into the family, so that you have Sonia, who is literally prostituting herself, and you have Donicheka, who is more or less prostituting herself into a marriage to support a family, to support her brother, in the hope that this wealthy husband or fiance will allow her brother to go back to university and things. So so there's all that in there. It is also, Raskolnikov is also refusing to, because he thinks he is this great figure, he is refusing to accept things that he thinks are beneath him. He is starving in a garret, but there is no reason for him to be in the garret. He is doing this voluntarily. He is not at the university voluntarily. He has stopped working. He is being morbid. He has detached himself from society to such a degree that he is now contemplating this. He sees the work is beneath him. And I would say, well, you're 23 and you are clearly not a very good teacher. Nobody is a great teacher when they start. To be a good teacher it takes years and years to learn the craft, the practice, develop the skills. Of course you are not a great teacher yet. But you are so great. So obviously people don't recognize your greatness. Well, that will not make you a good teacher. It will not make you a good teacher. So, but there is actually no reason for him to be literally in the position that he is. He is refusing to be a part of society. He is in a better position. There's no reason for him to walk around in rags. There is no reason for him to pawn his belongings. There is no reason to sponge off his pensioner mother. He really could do something. And there are so many examples in the book of other people who are in similar positions. His friend is actually paused his study because he could not afford, and is working to try and build up his reserves again so that he can resume his studies. There are so many examples of parallel lives to Raskolnikov, where people do not murder a moneylender, no matter how nasty she is, and who live integrated, who feel guilty for their for the action. Sonia's father feels terribly guilty for living off her wages. So there is this, may he does not stop. So it is very interesting psychological portraits for all these people, which I would say is why you would want to read this book. It is so deeply interesting from a psychological perspective. It is interesting in terms of what it is saying about society and mutual support of each other. The psychological, the cat and mouse, that is really what you want to read this book for. So there you go. There is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. I will bring you something else next time. Until then, au revoir. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.